Morning.
Welcome to the April 27th, 2017 session of the Prescott Planning and Zoning Commission. I think for the first time in a long time we have a full board, 7 members. That's nice to see. And I'd like to welcome City Councilman Lamerson. We needed somebody in the audience, Jim.
How's this happen? We just fed them, that's why.
Something you said.
If you feed them, they'll come.
And we haven't seen Joe for a while, so it's nice to see you, Joe. All right, I will entertain a motion for approval of the April 13th minutes.
I so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? No? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are good.
7-0.
All right. We have a site plan review for SL 17-002, 21-unit apartment complex on First Street. George?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to have to adjust to the microphone. My voice is still coming and going from a cold. This property is located off of First Street at the intersection of Navajo, and it's indicated on the site plan above, on the photo above. The property currently has a single-family home on it. The proposal is to remove the single-family home and install a 21-unit apartment complex. Give you a little bit better look at the general arrangement of the current site. This is a relatively steep slope that leads up to it. You can see shadow for the driveway cut now. That cut up through the rocks and onto a flat spot up on top where the existing house is also intended to be the primary drive up for the apartment complex. And again, with the flat spot on top being modified, I have no idea why this microphone's doing this, modified somewhat to allow for the larger buildings that they're proposing. I'm going to turn this sideways so that it aligns with the way the aerial photo showed it. So they would have to widen the driveway, the cut, in order to provide for a full 24-foot width, which is our minimum requirement for two-way traffic on a driveway. Up on the top, once they get past that, the area is flat enough that they can simply grade it to provide for sufficient parking for the 21 units. They're talking specifically about a building on the south end of the property. That area is the least conducive to producing the parking and the easiest to put a building on. It would be a 3-story building, a total of 21 units, 7 units on each floor. The proposal is for relatively small units. Most of these are 1-bedroom units. That is something that we're seeing a trend in with some more recent apartment complexes. The smaller units seem to be in demand either for students or for single persons looking for rental housing. We've gone through the review from the staff perspective. Building, fire, engineering services, and planning have all reviewed the plan. It meets all of our requirements except one, and that is a rear setback requirement. Due to the topography of the lot, they qualified for what we call a topographic exception that lets them reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 10, and that's what he's indicating on his plan. So he complies. It's actually this side is considered the rear because of the street access coming from the other. So he has met all of our requirements with the topo exception for the rear setback. He meets all of the other requirements for the size of the building, the minimum lots, access to and from, and the number of parking spaces. This again is one of the site plan approval processes that was established in order to go through the water resource process to obtain a water allocation. So this site plan is in anticipation of a water service agreement going to council. At some point in the relative near future, after that has happened, they would submit to us a full set of building plans, and a very, very thorough review occurs at that time. If you have any questions, I will attempt to answer them. Yes, sir.
George, I have a couple questions. First of all, a 3-story, 35-foot high building has to are they required for ADA to have an elevator?
It will depend on how many ADA accessible units can be placed on the ground floor. So that,
Don't they show only one, though?
they do at this point, so I believe they will have to provide additional ADA compatible units.
So that was my second question.
Yeah.
In a project like this, is there a percentage that they have to provide for ADA?
There is a percentage, but it's a percentage of the overall number of units, and they have to be provided somehow and somewhere. So they could be on upper floors if there are elevators for them. I'm not sure of the percentage of units. That's a building code requirement that's triggered during the site plan approval process and during the building permitting review process. So at this stage, we only have a view of the ground floor, and the number of units shown just indicate the one being ADA compatible. And it's actually not an ADA compatibility requirement, it's a Fair Housing Act compatibility requirement. They have to be ADA accessible for a particular number of them based on the Fair Housing Act. So at this time, it's not clear how many they will have, but again, when we get full building plans that show all 3 floors, we will verify that.
Thank you, George. I have a couple of questions about the setback.
Yes.
Isn't that typically something that will go to Board of Adjustment?
There are specific things that were written into the Land Development Code by the Unified Development Code Committee when they drafted it to reduce the number of variances that were required. One was an accessory, like for accessory buildings, reducing the rear setbacks to allow them. So there wasn't a variance process.
Because when I was on Board of Adjustment, we would see a lot of these variances.
That's correct. There was another one that was put in specifically for steep slope lots, a topographic
Yes.
exception, which is the one that applies in this case. Again, it was to prevent someone who had a significant problem with the slope of their lot having to go through a variance request rather than have it be administrative.
Thank you. I'm not a big fan of reducing setbacks at all. But boy, I'll tell you, in this case here, it really doesn't even look like you're reducing the setback. You're really just putting parking closer to the property line rather than buildings.
The other issue to consider is there's an alley actually behind him, so the distance between that and any adjacent properties.
And I mentioned that only for the future, that we don't reduce setbacks when there's big buildings that could be there, certainly a 3-story building. That for a parking lot situation, I certainly see no problem with reducing that setback.
Well, the setback is actually to the building. So it's at the very southwest
This one corner.
corner.
Right.
And that's the only area where it was actually reduced. The parking spaces are fine. They meet all of our requirements.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Bill?
What is the current water allocation of this?
There's one residential unit there, so it would be given, it would be accounted for approximately a 0.35 acre feet.
Okay, and what is the difference between that and what
I'm not sure.
this?
I'm not sure. I don't actually have that number yet. I don't know if this has been to Water Issues Committee or if it's scheduled for Water Issues Committee. I believe it's scheduled for Water Issues Committee. So they make that determination. Council's in process of modifying or looking at a possibility of modifying its water policy, so all of that will have to come together at the same time.
Phil?
George, you know the distance, the width of that alley behind the development?
It's 20 feet.
It looks a little bit wider than the other alleys in the general neighborhood.
I think some of it is because of, and I apologize, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to zoom in and get this very clear. The adjacent properties on the other side have fences along the back, but they're not actually at the property line. So this distance looks considerably wider than the typical 20-foot alley because their fences are inset almost 10 more feet. And that, again, is because of the slope of the hill at that point.
That probably helps with the setback exemption.
Again, and also there is a differential in height, so there's not a direct impingement or a building very close to an adjacent property.
Thank you.
These will all have to be sprinkled, won't they, anyway?
Yes.
Apartment, yeah.
I don't know, it seems like a pretty straightforward project. Fits in there pretty good. I'm kind of surprised that 3-story walk-ups, you wouldn't have an elevator. just for marketing standpoint. That seems strange. Owner, architect here, speak about it? No?
No, again, I believe the representative is ill this morning. Sir?
It mentions in there that TIA is required. Would council approve or not approve this plan subject to that? I mean, we don't get a chance to take a look at the TIA.
It's a staff review process, so that they will have to submit and get their traffic impact analysis approved by our traffic engineer before the building permits will be issued for the building. So it's purely at a staff level. So no, the traffic impact analysis will not go to council.
When you drive up that area there, it's kind of a complicated intersection. They're going to take their access.
That is the reason for the TIA, for the traffic impact analysis. Normally on a site this size, on a location like this, they wouldn't do that, but because it's at that intersection, I think our traffic engineer wants to verify that this is going to work.
But it specifically says it's not required.
Yeah, I think the initial determination, Mr. Chairman, is that a TIA is not required for this project, but then they would continue to look at it.
Okay.
On the building plan, if the building plan is proceeding.
There are two different.
that. I'm sorry. I thought it was required.
There are two different levels of impact analysis. One is a formal report, and the other is what's called a technical memorandum. The technical memorandum happens at staff level all the time.
I do have, and Tom brought up a great point about the elevator for a 3-story building. We're just looking at the site plan here.
Correct.
So we really don't have a lot of authority to look at some of the building features?
No.
At this point?
No.
Is there anything, thank you for that. But I really have a comment about that maybe we could look at. A 3-story building without an elevator becomes less attractive as time goes on, so that the property may not maintain its viability. I don't know what we do. I have no trouble with the site plan. I'm just saying that maybe when we get into the building thing, we should look at what happens down the line if you don't service that 3rd floor. It's really a tough one. And you could end up with something that's less attractive, poorly maintained building. So might be something we look at in our building situation.
Generally, we will address elevators in buildings if it's a requirement to meet ADA.
Right.
If it's a choice on the developer's side to not put them in and it's not required for ADA purposes,
It's a marketing decision.
it's a market decision.
But, I'm assuming that the buildings are going to be accessed vertically and that you're not going to be having units where you would have any kind of a shared hallway or a shared patio across the very front or anything. If you were to put in an elevator, it would either just serve one unit or you would have to change the configuration of the whole layout in order to have it accessible by all the units.
Well, same as the stairwells. The stairwells have to be.
Well,
The stairwells have
those
to
are
be-
all interior
Yeah.
stairwells within an individual unit. They're not shared, are they?
Yeah, there's
It's
a
three stories.
there's a common balcony running all the way around.
There's 3 levels of apartments.
So elevator would serve the same balcony.
Oh, so there is a common balcony?
Yeah. See the columns in front of the units? That's supporting a balcony which
Yeah.
runs all the way, the L-shaped around the whole building.
And actually, they've got 3 staircases. They probably only need 2.
That's,
They could take out a staircase.
they
and
do
put an
only need
elevator.
2 stairs, yes, that's true.
But anyway, moving
Well,
day
they got-
is going to be a lot of fun.
Moving day is going to be tough. And having managed buildings like this, not quite like this, what happens is the young kids get on the 3rd floor, and the young kids make the most noise, so the people on the 2nd floor complain. So that tends to deteriorate a building in the long run.
Okay.
But I like the site plan.
I think one of the nice things about the site plan is it does preserve all the rocks in the front. If you wanted to really max out the site and go 2 stories, you just bulldoze, blast all the rocks away.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Okay, I guess we don't have anybody in the audience that's going to respond, right?
Well, how many units could have been built on this, when now we're talking about?
Just by square footage, I believe it was 38.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's big, good size site.
No, I like the layout. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, no comments from the public. Any further discussion? We can act on this?
Yes, sir.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion. I recommend that we move to approve site plan SI 17-002 First Street Apartments.
I have a second.
Second?
All right. I've moved in a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Say aye. Aye. Okay. All right, item number 2. Site plan, SL 17-003. Site plan approval for 102-unit complex. George?
So this is before you for the same reason. It's a significantly larger project. I will point out it's in very close proximity. The property you just looked at is right there. So this location is accessed off of Bagby Lane,
Yeah, you fooled us.
which is off of Navajo.
You fooled us. I drove up and stopped at the end and said, oh, there's no way you're going to get 102 units on that parcel. So where's the rest of it?
Okay, so there's the rest of it.
Well, I didn't have that drawing in my packet. Okay.
So this property will require a combination of lots together in order to make the site. Right now, there are 3, possibly 4. There's a long lot right here, which I believe is part of this project as well. The proposal is for 101 unit apartment complex? Or is it changed to 102?
It says 102.
Yes, sir. It originally came through our PAC review as 101. This project actually came in and started some time ago. About a year and a half ago, the city council was revising its water policy, and they created a list of units that were in process or projects that were in process, and they put those aside and said that they would be subject to a review for water regardless of what they were. The water policy is subsequently changed, and some types of developments wouldn't have a higher priority that council assigns. In this case, this was one of those things that made that prior list, so it's a carryover, and the city council.
That was from an old plat? Because we've never seen this.
No, it never actually made it to this point in process. This was before council water policy changed to require the site plan approval. So the request is for a 102-unit apartment complex. The buildings you see, the footprints you see, are 3-story buildings also. These are significantly larger overall. The mix of units, we specified some of that in your staff report, is significantly broader. This is more of a market rate and intended to capture a fairly significant market share of people who are looking for rental housing rather than ownership housing. The applicants are here and can answer specific questions about it, but they've also provided us with kind of an unusual 3-dimensional fly through the property, and if you'll indulge me a moment, I will run that for you.
Well, Joe, this is one of your favorite things, comments. A project that's topographically challenged like this, and we don't get a site section, you know. It would have been much clearer. I still don't know if, because we've kind of requested staff on these kind of projects to ask for a site section. We're not having too much luck doing that. I was trying to estimate the distance between the units, and I was going by the lower floors. Can you go back to the site plan? I was trying to figure out, there's about 110 feet from bottom to top. And I was trying to figure out the distance between, the vertical distance between buildings. And I was going by the lower floor numbers. And on the building 1 and 2 and 3, I was getting like 80 and 90 feet difference, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I realized Building 2's lower floor number's 100 feet off.
And one building.
Oh, the finished floor elevation?
The finished floor elevation.
There wasn't one building.
Yeah, 100 feet off, and I'm going, wow, there's no way it's 90 feet between buildings.
He just noticed it too. Yeah, this one here.
I figured it out this morning about 7 o'clock. I'm going, what is going on with these numbers? Anyway, shall we just let the architect or the...
You want to talk about it a
That'd be
little
great.
bit, and
Let's
then
hear
I can
from
run the thing? Go ahead and talk to him a little bit about what your project is.
Sure. Just go over the project generally.
Sure. Have you visited the lots?
Name and address, please.
Tom Terry, Distinctive Homes. I was the architect. And it's a very difficult lot if you've gone by. We've got, I think you said 110 vertical feet
Yeah.
distance.
Does.
So we've got, they're 3 stories. And they're split level, as in we enter on the middle level and we have 1 story down and 1 story up.
Okay.
And we tried to, since we had that vertical distance, we tried to get all the lots overlooking, all the units overlooking all the other units. So hopefully having all of them have views. And so there's about, I'd say, 80 feet between the units, including the parking. And vertically, we tried to get 30-foot difference between each building, so all the units overlook the ones below. So it's a very difficult lot. So it's all passive solar, faces south, and all have views of downtown and the forest. So I think it'd be a wonderful place to live. So
Well, the views should be good,
yes,
but boy, it's a challenging site, is right.
yes, that's been the challenge. So
Is
yeah.
that street out in front? That's well over 8%.
Yeah.
Bagby Lane
I mean,
is,
my
yes,
brakes
sir.
barely held when I was backing down that street after I
I
went and
believe
saw
it's
the site.
12. I believe it's 12%.
Okay. What is the maximum driveway?
That's 12% as well.
Is it 12? Is that going to be acceptable to the fire department?
Is that the
That's
driveway
the
on
maximum.
the east?
That is
Yeah. Yeah, on the east.
a long stretch of driveway.
12%?
Yes.
Oh, well,
No, you might have a
can't-
problem with the
you can't.
fire department on that.
That was the maximum they would allow. So we've been through it.
These aren't just summer rentals, are they? I mean, you're going to have snow
No.
on that road.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's right, 12% works on a driveway, not on the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
All units are sprinklered, or will be sprinklered.
Right.
Yeah, that's my concern. I mean, these are really steep drives, including, passing, there's not much of a break when you enter the parking lots. I mean, that one, the lowest left one, it's pretty much straight 12%, and then you're getting off to your parking lot, and then up on the very top, all of the traffic goes through that parking lot, which is, I mean, it's going to be something when it's icy. It's going to be, how wide are the drives?
24 feet.
Yeah. And then I don't know how steep they are on the curves, but they're also still pretty darn steep on the curves. I mean,
They're shallower on the curves, but it's 12% in the straights.
Yeah,
So
and what is on the curves?
about looks like it's about I'd say 6%, half
I
on the
don't know if it
curves.
drops that much
Mm.
on the inside. Anyway, I just see this as a tough one in the winter.
It is a tough one.
Just,
Yeah.
I mean,
They're facing north.
I live at the top of the hill that's got stretches of 12%, because I made my driveway 12% because it was 12% to get up to the house. But they're short stretches. There'll be a little stretch of 12, and then it'll flatten out, and a little stretch of 12, which is much easier, because, once you get stopped on 12%, you're not moving in ice. I mean, so I personally, it's very hard to say no to something that meets the code standards, but I think this is a catastrophe waiting to happen, personally. But also, I hate to say, well, you've met the code, so we're going to turn it down. So I'm in a quandary on that. So.
Well, I think codes were good ideas, and sometimes they don't fit. We're going to be facing a lot more of these projects as we go on here. We got 2 today that are terrain challenged, and I think we're going to the parcels remaining in our community are pretty much the terrain challenged parcels. The flat ones have been gone for quite a while. I think the code is the code, but I don't know that codes fit everything. I really have a hard time. What do you got, a 80-foot, is this about an 80-foot drive on the east side?
On
the east side?
It's 200 feet or so. You mean
This
the
is
whole length?
200? Yeah, the length.
The whole length is something like that.
At 12%?
Well,
it's
as
got
you can
short
see,
spots.
it's 12% between buildings, but then there's a flat spot to access the parking lot. So there's some
Right.
shelves along the way.
So a
but
car could
it's
just bounce down. there.
between building, it's right. It's 12%.
Except that lower left one, there's no shelf.
Yeah.
Right. That's the long run. Yep.
That's a tough one.
I think we have
It's
to
a
be careful
C-plot.
that we look at codes, and I'm not sure if our job is to enforce the code up here at the Planning Commission as much as look at it and see how it fits into the environment. I'm familiar with the parcel again. I looked at it probably 12, 15 years ago. It's a very challenging parcel. I commend you for being able to figure out some type of site plan. I see you kind of did switchbacks within the property to make it somewhat work, but I'm having serious trouble with that drive on the east. Very serious trouble. I like your concept of separating the buildings far enough. You got slope. You're not packing them in because you couldn't pack much more in here anyway. So that they're looking out over the next building. But I'll tell you, I just have heartache. I'm not sure I can make a decision today on this one with this driveway. This is a tough one.
Well, it's basically a project, it's like 5 separate apartment projects, okay? Because of the vertical distance. I mean, it's just like 5 individual projects. But you're right, my main concern would be the driveway. I don't know how far that can stop us from, an approval.
Yeah.
Because the buildings work, setbacks work, everything technically works, the 12%.
And there's really no way to connect those two roads, at less than that.
Well,
I mean,
they have a certain amount of continuity, around the buildings, which is good. Except for the top one and the bottom one.
That is south-facing, that road,
Believe
so
it.
you are
Yeah.
not going to have the ice near as much as if it was.
That'll help.
Well, this all faces north, though. That's the problem.
It's south.
So does this.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get a maintenance man to get his cart up there. Not that that's our problem. No.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you desire to take action on this today and find that it conforms to all of the requirements, but you have a serious concern about the driveway steepness, you can express that concern, and that will be transmitted on to council along with your recommendation.
Are there sidewalks here? that,
In front of the units.
In front of all the units, and, we had noted, you mentioned a traffic analysis, but since you're going all the way down to Viejo Street, now you're picking up the city-owned property and what's called the Greenways Trail System and Park, and it's going to be definitely an urban opportunity for the apartment dwellers to be able to just hoof it on downtown a short distance and not have to get in their car in the first place, as long as you provide some connectivity to the city street and the city property right below you.
That's here?
Yeah, that's down there is city. So, it's a wonderful downtown urban dwelling situation in that regard, as long as you make some plans for accommodating, assuming that people are going to live here and don't have to drive their car, a lot of them, just hop on downtown.
Well, yeah, that comes right out near the bridge, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's pretty neat that, where it is.
Were we going to continue with that video?
Well, so we come up with a technical, obviously, we're saying, okay, it meets all the code, all the planning requirements, and the technical question would be the concern about the steepness of the driveways. I don't know if that could keep us from approving it,
And
as long as they're meeting everything technically. You don't agree?
I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, that's okay. These rock, anyway, the rock retaining areas, one on one slope. What's the maximum one of those, like 20 feet, something like that, up in the, by building 5?
I think the tallest one might be something like that. They're not all that. But
No. So.
Boulders.
Yeah,
Boulders.
boulders.
it's an all rock site.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
we'll
boulders.
just build it out of excavated rock, so.
Yeah, that's really why I wanted to, it would have been interesting, and it would be helpful to see a site plan section, because I was not sure if there weren't additional retaining walls besides the stone, the stone revetments.
And, and those stone revetments, it'll be 20 feet vertical. I mean, one-on-one slope, that's 45 degrees, that's steep. And it's going to be 20 feet high. So you're going to be looking at your apartment at a 20-foot tall, pile of rocks, which, I mean, it's a very difficult site, no question about it. And I do agree that some sections through there might help us better understand what's going on. And I would ask the traffic department to look at that, the lowest parking lot where you are being asked to enter and leave at about a 12% grade. So, I mean, like I said, the other ones on the right, they do flatten out. On the left, they don't. So, again, you're going to have some amazing traffic maneuvers when it's icy. I have a feeling, you talked about not renting an apartment without an elevator. Well, these are 3 stories. Entering from the center floor helps with that. But
Yeah, I think that works.
But I think, a few cars sliding down that in the
Well-
wintertime, you're going to have tenants leaving. And like I said, I think that straight 12 all the way up that hillside is going to be a real challenging situation.
Well, the staff report says the traffic impact analysis will be required and shall include analysis of all site access drives. Okay? And that certainly should include, steepness.
The internal circulation as well.
General
yes.
circulation.
Tom, well, I'll tell you, I just think that while the code may say 12%, I think that's for Joe's driveway. I think that was the concept with the 12% grade, in my opinion. I didn't write the code, and I'm not an engineer, but that's for a 30-foot driveway into your house, I'm thinking, not necessarily for the internal roadways in an apartment complex. I'd like to table this project right now and get some more information.
I mean,
Yeah, that's
individual units
absolutely-
could be steeper, individual driveways, I think 12 is a street.
Yeah, they can go to 20 on houses.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, my concern is you get one vehicle that slips down there by building 1, and you have 85 people that can't get out of that development. You got one access.
Would that
could be a real issue.
Part of the traffic study? I mean, it says study access drives. So would the internal circulation a concern be part of a traffic analysis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we look at the entire scope of the project for
Okay.
traffic analysis.
The other-
They'll look at off-site as well at the adjacent streets at Bagby Lane and the steepness of Bagby Lane.
The other thing that really helps is a very rough texture on the pavement. I mean, you want it nothing smooth.
Right.
Because at least you get some bite. And I think if I lived there, in the winter, I'd come in from the top, at least I'm not trying to fight going up.
But you couldn't get there.
Yeah, so I mean, that is
Can't
a
get there from
benefit.
here.
You can start at the top and go down, and you can do that.
Well, except
more
there's
easily.
no connectivity, is there here?
Yes, it does connect
All
to,
the way through.
connects to
Vallejo.
Vallejo Street,
Oh, okay, well,
but
that's
it
good.
winds through the neighborhood, and I do not expect that to be a primary
Yeah,
access.
okay. Well, that's good.
I have a question on the getting the water off the site. It's not clear just how you're going to handle all this water that's going to come off this site without some major drainages or detention? Does it,
Yeah, we'll have detention
does it have some?
Each
in
one,
the
geez.
parking lot. It's all designed to go down the west of the property and then come down the street, or vertically on the west side or the left side. All the channels run to that channel there and comes down the driveway.
And then how does it
Two
get
below,
off the
comes
site
out back.
altogether?
What's that?
How does it get off the site altogether then? Is there a,
It goes
Because the
vertically
detention.
down the west property line, then horizontal to the south, and then exit out next to the driveway on the south side.
Isn't that detention you have over here on the right side of Building 5?
We're planning on detention, subterranean in each parking lot,
subterranean? Well, that's
in the
That's
parking
what-
lot, yeah,
On the
right there.
left.
Right, right there.
But you have a large underground detention on the right.
And then that would exit out to the west and then come down to below on the south side. There's a drainage swale. I don't know if you can see that on the west side.
Then why is there a detention reservoir on the right side of?
That's the drainage path on that site. Yeah. There's going to have detention tanks underneath the parking lots, and then the overflow will dump into that ditch there on the west side, and then come down the property.
And is the area facing Montezuma, once you get past the stone fill, that's not disturbed?
Well, parts of it is disturbed,
Yeah.
but we had to create the driveway, but
But you're
the tall stone is undisturbed, yeah.
Yeah, so about how far back from the parking, or excuse me, from the property line on the east side? does-
You know, it
does
varies.
start?
It's about 25 feet to 40 feet
Okay.
off the top of the bank, something like that. But it varies going up, so, yeah.
Well, that'll help the appearance
Right.
of Montezuma.
There'll be a step there, yeah,
It's not just built
Straight
right to
up.
the property line.
right.
Are you planning a guardrail on that?
Yes, I think that would be wise.
Oh, I think it'd be real. You got a 50-foot drop, don't you? In some places to.
Yes.
Because when I go up Montezuma at that spot, I'm not looking up. Cars coming at me from the sky.
Right.
I'm going to miss it.
It's a rock face. It's-
Yeah.
Well, is it going to help? Can we request a site plan section?
Yeah.
And come back and see us?
I think the section will
I think
help.
we need it. I think we need it, Tom.
We have a video. We haven't shown the video yet, so. that
He
might
wants us
help
to see
too.
the video.
Okay.
So I can run that for you, but if you have a request for additional information,
And we can do
that's
the
your-
site.
your
I think we're
prerogative.
getting there.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that was very nice, and it was very helpful, too, to understand the site.
Thank you.
Where'd the sidewalk go?
And I like the idea using the center entrance to step the buildings down. That's something that I didn't realize you were
Okay.
doing until you explained it, and that shows it very clearly.
That's actually quite a bit like the apartment complex on Willow Creek Road that's currently under construction, 160 units, that they stepped it
Yeah,
up that
they
way.
stepped it up
That was the
like
same
that.
concept
You're right,
we approved here.
exactly.
Yeah.
Parallel buildings down the slope and going in the center.
Robinson Drive one.
Yeah, yeah,
That was this real steep.
Yeah.
I remember that one, Robinson.
right, yeah. Well, okay,
And I don't.
guys
if-
still want to see a section through the site?
I think
Yes.
the section would be very helpful. I think the video is very good.
It was.
I would like to see, and maybe some area in town where you're turning off a 12% slope, to a drive. But
There
that's,
aren't very many.
yeah, like I say, you flatten it out on the right. That's my only issue, and I think, with that side, I don't see much of a solution to it. I mean,
No, I don't either, and I'm willing to leave it up to the experts, the traffic people, to look at it thoroughly. I think our job is to question it, and so that they will look at it carefully. But obviously, the concern is ice in the winter. Other than that, I'd approve it right now. So, but I think. Can you get us the site section
You bet.
and
We can
take a
do
look
that.
at it next time?
Yeah.
I think it would be wise to do that, and it'll give us a little bit more chance to study it. But yeah, the movie was excellent. That really is a good sales feature.
Thank you.
Is it a requirement that the parking lots exit on both sides?
No, the fire department wanted the fire truck access on the west side. So that was added due to the fire department. But we do have one dead-end parking lot on the low end, but everything else can be connected, so.
That's true.
And would that make a difference on that east side slope if they didn't all exit out there? I'm not trying to design it, but
no,
I'm just wondering.
I think it's beneficial to have the dual drives.
Oh, I do too.
So you don't have the whole traffic driving through the parking lot. Like I
Absolutely.
said, I think the worst condition is the top one, where you're going to have a lot of traffic through the parking lot. People backing, it just,
Yeah.
to me, that's awkward. But other than that, I mean, that's a problem for the people living there. If there's room, perhaps the drive at the uppermost one could be made a little wider, just, to make the maneuvering a little bit easier, just because, you're going to have people backing out into the traffic lane.
You mean here?
No, the very upper one, where all the traffic, very
The
upper.
northernmost.
Top.
Oh, that's bottom.
That one, all of the traffic,
You're not
That's the
standing-
bottom, Joe.
You're not supposed to
That's
stand
the
on your head,
top.
Tom.
I'm talking about graphically.
Graphic.
Do a handstand.
Anyway, I can't read the building number on that. But, all of the traffic goes through that parking lot, and the people are going to be backing into a traffic lane, whereas at least the other ones, the traffic doesn't have to go through the parking lots. That's all.
That's true.
And could we add the guardrail on your plan?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, and the sidewalk, you said that, didn't show that.
In front of all the units, we have sidewalks, but this would be a 12% sidewalk, so we thought that might be a hazard connecting the buildings.
Yeah.
Have to be steps.
So they're walking the street, and
We would have site steps in the landscaping. It's too steep to have a sidewalk along the
Right.
the drive.
Right.
Any
More,
other,
just need more.
any other
Okay,
details?
I
that
think, I think it would be very helpful to the site section and give us a little more time to kind of study this and to maybe talk to traffic about some of the questions we have in the meantime.
We'll pass the
Okay, so
information
we
on to
can,
them.
we're going to postpone this site to a date certain.
Yes, your next meeting is May 11.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get the traffic analysis before that meeting?
Now,
Get their opinion?
Probably not.
No?
we can get Ian to take a look at
He
it.
can
and
get
give
it. He
a
can get his
written opinion,
comments.
But it
Can we
won't
get
be a
comments
traffic
from
analysis.
I'm not looking for a TIA, yeah.
Right.
If Ian could give us a sense,
We'll try to have it here.
that'd be great. 'cause
That would be helpful too, but
most of the issues here is,
we'd like him to look at
Access.
it though before that time and, get us a site section as soon as possible. Get it to us.
As soon as we receive it, we will distribute it out to you.
Okay. Is that all right, Tom? No problem. Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Directed to staff, probably, on behalf of the 5 commissioners who are not architects or engineers. When we take a look at this site, all the information, it was very difficult for the rest of, well, at least for me, to go through the whole thing when you got the topo on there and you got all the other information. Is it possible when they submit this, that it gets submitted on a couple of sheets rather than?
Did you look at this? Did you look at the second sheet?
Yeah,
It's flat.
It's flat.
But that's, I don't think, you're not talking about flat, you just thought
What
it was
he's,
pretty
what he's
intense.
talking about is the site plan without the topo lines.
Oh, you are?
Because it does make it rather
Page 2?
complicated looking.
You want the topo, but you just want it bigger.
Well, I just think it'd be easier. Joe and Tom can take a look at that, and they know what to look for
Yeah.
immediately. The rest of us kind of struggle to try to figure out.
Well, I would have struggled 3 years ago, but boy, I'm familiar with topos now.
Pretty clear. That's right. Okay.
And Rockville.
And rock
Is this a
formations.
fair question, not a fair question?
I think it's a fair question. There's a lot of information on this sheet, although I like this sheet with the topo, but maybe not as, it was so intense, you really had to study it.
Right.
Thank you.
It could be,
Complicated project, tough site to work with, so. Okay,
So we do need a motion to defer to a date
I'll entertain a
specific.
motion to continue to date certain, May 11th.
May 11.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No? Raise your right hand, say aye.
All right.
Okay, we'll see you back
Thank you.
on the 11th.